There's a difference most people miss, and it's quietly shaping the fate of your inner life. You think control means silencing emotion, but what if that silence is just repression in disguise? Jung warned, "What you resist not only persists, but grows." And the Stoics never told you to feel less. They taught you to see clearly. So ask yourself, are you mastering your emotions, or just burying them alive, waiting for them to return with teeth? Stoic emotional control is about transforming your relationship to emotions, not eliminating them. Most people hear control and imagine a cold, numb existence, as if wisdom requires you to amputate your own heart. But the Stoics never asked you to feel less, they asked you to see more clearly. Epictetus said, "Men are disturbed not by things, but by the views which they take of them." And that single insight changes everything, because it means your emotions are not enemies to suppress, but signals to interpret. When anger rises, the untrained mind either explodes or represses, but the Stoic pauses and asks, what belief is creating this? Maybe it is the belief that you are being disrespected or that life should be fair, and once you see that belief, the emotion loosens its grip. Jung warned, "What you resist not only persists, but will grow in size," which is exactly what happens when you try to suppress emotion. It sinks into the shadow and returns stronger, stranger, and less controllable. True control is conscious engagement. It is feeling anger without becoming it, feeling fear without obeying it. A simple practice is this: the next time a strong emotion arises, name it, locate it in your body, and ask what story is fueling it. Write it down. You will begin to notice patterns, and in that awareness, something subtle shifts. You are no longer possessed. You are in dialogue with yourself. That is not suppression. That is mastery. Suppressing emotions drives them into the shadow, where they influence your behavior unconsciously. When you push down anger, jealousy, or grief, you don't destroy them, you exile them. And in exile, they become more primitive, more distorted, more dangerous. Jung wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." And this is the quiet tragedy of suppression. You think you are in control, but your hidden emotions are pulling the strings. You see it in passive aggression, in sudden outbursts that seem to come from nowhere, in chronic anxiety with no clear cause. The Stoics understood this in their own language. They trained perception so that emotions could be examined before they hardened into impulses. Seneca warned about anger specifically, calling it a kind of temporary madness, not because it exists, but because it overtakes the mind when unexamined. So, instead of burying what you feel, bring it into the light deliberately. When you feel irritation, don't dismiss it as weakness. Trace it. Ask, what am I unwilling to admit right now? Maybe it is envy. Maybe it is hurt. This is shadow work in action. Try this exercise. At the end of each day, reflect on one emotional moment that felt disproportionate. Write what happened, what you felt, and what deeper emotion might have been hiding beneath it. Over time, you reclaim parts of yourself that were operating in secret. Control then becomes integration, not denial. Stoic discipline lies in choosing your response, not in denying your initial emotional reaction. The first surge of emotion is often automatic, almost biological, and the Stoics knew this. They did not expect you to be immune to the human condition, only to be responsible for what follows. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. And hidden in that statement is a crucial distinction. You do not control the initial spark, but you do control the fire you build from it. When someone insults you, the sting is immediate. But what you do next is where your character is revealed. Do you replay it, feeding resentment, or do you examine it, and let it pass. Jung would say that the intensity of your reaction often points to something unresolved within you, which means your emotional reaction is not just about the present, it is a doorway into your inner world. Instead of shutting that door, step through it. The practice is simple but difficult. Create a gap between stimulus and response. When triggered, pause, literally count to 5 if you must, and observe the urge without acting on it. In that gap, you reclaim authorship of your behavior. Over time, you realize that control is not about becoming less emotional, but about becoming less reactive. You still feel, deeply even, but you are no longer enslaved by what you feel. True emotional mastery requires feeling fully while remaining anchored in reason and values. There is a misconception that rationality and emotion are opposites, but in reality, they are meant to work together. Like a rider and a horse, emotion provides energy, direction, and depth, while reason provides guidance and restraint. Without emotion, life becomes flat and meaningless. Without reason, it becomes chaotic and destructive. The Stoics aimed for harmony between the two. Seneca wrote, "Reason does not extinguish passion, but brings it into harmony." And that is the image you should hold. Not suppression, but alignment. Jung's idea of individuation echoes this. Becoming whole requires integrating your emotional life, not amputating it. Think of grief. Suppressed, it turns into numbness or bitterness. Fully felt and consciously processed, it deepens your capacity for empathy and meaning. The same is true for anger. It can either destroy relationships or clarify boundaries, depending on whether it is guided by awareness. Try this reflection. When you feel a strong emotion, ask yourself, what value is this emotion pointing toward? Anger might point to justice, fear to safety, sadness to love. Then ask, what is the most honorable way to act in alignment with that value? This keeps you grounded. You are not denying the emotion, you are elevating it. You are letting it inform you, not control you. That is what mastery feels like, not coldness, but clarity. The goal of Stoic practice is inner freedom, which comes from understanding emotions rather than silencing them. Suppression feels like control in the short term because it creates the illusion of calm, but it is a fragile calm, easily shattered because nothing has actually been resolved beneath the surface. True freedom is different. It is the ability to experience any emotion without being overwhelmed or defined by it. Marcus Aurelius practiced this constantly, reminding himself of impermanence with memento mori, not to become indifferent, but to gain perspective. When you remember that everything is temporary, your emotions lose their tyrannical urgency. They are still felt, but they no longer dominate. Jung would say that this is what happens when consciousness expands. The same emotions exist, but they no longer occupy the whole stage. A practical exercise here is to sit with an emotion instead of escaping it. Set a timer for 5 minutes, close your eyes, and simply observe what you feel without distraction or judgment. Notice how it rises, shifts, and eventually softens. This teaches you something vital. Emotions are processes, not permanent states. Once you truly understand this, you stop fearing them. And when you stop fearing them, you no longer feel the need to suppress them. That is the difference most people miss. Control is not about becoming less human, it is about becoming free within your humanity.